Critical thinking skills are amongst the most important skills students can take away with them. I like to say the art of being right. It's the skill of being more right more often when you make judgments as whether things are true or false. We make judgments all the time. We prefer to be right in those judgments, and critical thinking is bringing to bear the kinds of skills and techniques that help us be more right more often. I was teaching critical thinking at Indiana University for about 4 years. Though I thought it was a very important subject to teach, I was depressed to see that the students really weren't learning much at all. Later I came to realise that other people had had a very similar experience, that other experts in the field had reported a lack of results in using traditional techniques to improve critical thinking skills. A number of years later, I set out on a mission to try to develop a technique that would really work and reliably produce substantial gains in critical thinking ability. Over a number of years at the University of Melbourne, we did tests of undergraduate students in a one semester long course based upon these techniques. We tested them before the semester started and we tested them at the end of the semester, and we found that they showed reliably substantial gains on the California Critical Thinking Skills Test, which is an objective test of critical thinking skills test. It's one of the leading tests used worldwide to measure critical thinking skills in undergraduate students and school students. When we tested the University of Melbourne students using the California Critical Thinking Skills Test, we found that their average performance over one semester went up by about 0.8 of a standard deviation. Now that sounds a bit technical, but it's really quite a significant gain in a generic skill. For comparison, when we looked at other studies of students at university, we found that typically students would only improve their skills by 0.1 of a standard deviation over the same period. The technique basically amounted to lots of good quality practice using a technique we call argument mapping. Argument mapping is simply producing diagrams of arguments. So we're using visualization to help students understand and evaluate reasoning and argument structures. So it's like mind mapping, but it's specifically applied to the kinds of structures you find in reasoning and argument. We realised with our research at the University of Melbourne that we had a method that could reliably improve critical thinking skill gains. That method depended upon having good software tools. We had developed tools on a low budget at the University of Melbourne. We'd proved that they work, but in order to take this to a much wider audience, we needed higher quality tools. So we created AusThink software to give us the resources to build those world-class educational tools. Rationale is a tool a bit like a mind mapping tool or a concept mapping tool, but it's specially designed for the higher order critical thinking skills. So it helps students display the structure of their thinking. In displaying their reasoning, they learn about the structure of arguments, they learn to evaluate arguments more effectively, and they can do things like producing stronger argumentative essays.
So Rationale can be used as a standalone tool for teaching critical thinking as a separate unit, or it can actually be integrated into your existing curriculum frameworks. So whether you're teaching humanities and English or science, Rationale can be used for all these purposes, wherever you need to show reasoning and communicate a perspective. Okay, some of the problems that teachers talk to us about in teaching critical thinking is that students don't always show both perspectives. They don't consider the pros and cons, they don't look at the whole story, they don't look at the evidence, they don't even know how to evaluate, where to evaluate, what analysing means. So what we've done with Rationale is design it in such a way that you can scaffold these skills and build them bit by bit. So Rationale has been terrific for primary school students, just building those basic reasoning skills so that they also understand the language of reasoning, such as argument, reason, objection, rebuttal. For secondary students, Rationale has been fantastic on planning essays, on showing the reasoning, showing both sides, both perspectives, and revealing evidence. Colleges and universities are also using Rationale, and that's because they can use it for information systems, for psychology, for business students, for philosophy students. It covers a whole range of subjects and curriculum. Rationale's been really useful for the whole IB program, whether you want to show the basic language of argumentation from the primary years into structuring of reasoning and showing of evidence in the middle years program, and in the diploma program we have specific resources to help with the extended essay and the theory of knowledge.
Our mission is simply put to develop the best tools available for the improvement of thinking, whether in schools or in the workplace.